Hey, everybody. Super excited to dive into one of the hottest topics in enterprise tech today, AI agents, orchestration, and governance. And joining is an innovator and expert in the field, Sagi from Tonkean. Sagi, how are you?
Very good, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Really excited for this chat as this is one of the number one trending topics today out there in the enterprise for good reason. Before that, maybe introduce yourself, your bio and background, and what's the big idea behind Tonkean?
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. Sagi, the CEO and founder of Tonkean, and we actually been around. I was smiling when you were saying it's the hottest topic right now, but we've been around for almost a decade now, and we've been saying orchestration for almost a decade now. And I kind of like to joke that 10 years ago, no one understood what I want from them. But yeah, long story short, Tonkean is a platform that we help very large enterprises orchestrate their internal processes, especially around legal, procurement, finance, IT, and so on, and leveraging agents to really take over the more than just the manual work, is the collaboration and the streamline of the process itself. You asked like, what is the idea behind Tonkean? When I started Tonkean, I had this realization of business processes are about people, not about data. But all of enterprise SaaS is about data. It's all about the ticket. But the process is not. It's between people, and it's more fluid, and it changes. You have the policies, you have the compliance, but the actual work is non-deterministic. And so agents fits right in, and LLM in general speaks to the people language, right? Like literally, figuratively, and literally, but then also has the ability to be more autonomous and more and less deterministic when needs to, which is more aligned with how we work as people.
Brilliant. And how did AI governance go from, just important, but to basically table stakes, non-negotiable for enterprises these days?
Yeah, I think it comes right back to sort of like that deterministic versus non-deterministic, right? So we kind of got used to just in general interacting with technology in a very sort of like expected behavior. Our expectations from how technology should work is to be deterministic and consistent. I make that joke is that if you go into your microwave and you click, 2 minutes, you're expecting it to just run for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? And so in many ways, technology was very limited. On the downside of it, but the upside of it, limitation means also compliance and easier to audit, easier to regulate. AI brings magic to it, where with my microwave example, you can just tell it like warm this up, and maybe it will be 1.5 minutes, maybe it will be 1 minute, maybe it will be 2 minutes, which is great on the sense of value, because it takes that mental load from you, the person, to the machine, which is something we didn't have. But at the same time, it comes with risk, right? It's like, okay, what if it will run it for 10 minutes, and burn my chicken? So the point, again, this is just an analogy, but if you bring it to the enterprise, obviously the risks or the things that are at risk are much higher. A mistake, we just saw an example recently in the news of an agent that deleted the entire code base of a company, right? Or when it comes to handling personal data, when it comes to handling again compliance related issues, the importance is much higher.
Absolutely. And you've also said AI agents without orchestration is a recipe for disaster. What do you mean by that? What kind of disaster is waiting for us? You gave us a good example, but what else can we look out for?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest thing that is hard to maybe grasp by just reading news or reading social media is the excitement around agents compared to just like LLMs and ChatGPT. Obviously, the last 2 years, everything, or like 2.5 years now, everything is sort of like flipped on its head with what you would predict the future of technology and software would be. But the biggest difference with agents is again that autonomy and the ability to use tools and use skills that you provide with it in a more unexpected ways. I think when it comes down to how you would manage this capability, how you would implement it, not from like building it or connecting it, but like how actually on the day-to-day would you work with it. I really like to think about it as just a person that you hire. No one is going to hire someone to an organization and give them access to everything in the company, right? There's a reason why, we're all human beings. It's not that I don't trust you to do it. Is that, yeah, of course, there's a niche of like malicious people, but like, it's not that I don't trust you to do something bad. I trust you to do a mistake. I don't trust you to not do a mistake. You know what I mean? So not giving you access, or the concept of least privilege, is a concept we did for people, which just a second ago we thought are the most intelligent entities we've ever seen, right? So AI, you can argue whether it is more intelligent, less, that doesn't matter. It's on the trajectory of becoming more and more intelligent. At that point, there is no reason for us to expect anything different. In fact, even more so. So governance, when it comes to orchestration, it's really about creating the policies, the even org chart. What access do you give, what instructions, what is the job profile you give that agent, what is the scope you are allowing it to act in, and then how does it needs to work together with other agents and with people and with other systems, which is kind of to complete the thought. If you would hire someone with 150 IQ, like the smartest person, they can sit on a lab somewhere and they can do a fantastic job. But what if you hire 5 or 10 or 20 or 100? They're not gonna, you can't just like drop them somewhere and tell them go to work. They would figure out themselves if you wouldn't give them an org chart, and a separation of responsibilities and goals and, and policies and guardrails. And this is kind of my point. We invented those things to manage high intelligent beings more efficiently. And so agents are the same thing. And orchestration is essentially the technical version of it. It's the layer that will allow you to organize those agents together, to be compliant, to be effective, and to collaborate together.
Got it. And so everyone talks about AI time and cost savings, including myself as a very small business, a tremendous efficiencies and advantages. But when it comes to the enterprise, the C-suite is looking for ROI enterprise-wide. It's not always just cost and time. How do you think about the ROI drivers for agentic AI?
I think most people lean into efficiency first, and I think that's granted, right? Like if it takes you an hour to do a job or a task that an agent can do in a minute, this is obviously a critical value point. So I think that remains a big part, but I think most people ends there, right? They say, okay, this is all about efficiency. I think there's two other sort of like less spoke about values that you can get if you build those agents the right way, configure them, like I said, orchestrate them in the right way. So in addition to efficiency, of course, there's a side effect of efficiency, which is focus, right? Even if I have an agent that doesn't actually take 1 minute, it's actually take like hours to do the job because, it does a lot of, research and all that stuff. My job, as an IC, as an individual contributor that is now using those agents, just elevated. I just moved from being the one that, even if you think about like a newspaper, right? It's like there's a writer and there's an editor, right? Like you moved from being the writer to being the editor, right? Which means first you can do more, projects at the same time. But then you can also, again, elevate your own skill and importance in a way because that job is now changed, right? And so a lot of teams, and we work with Fortune 500 companies, and in a lot of those internal teams, like I mentioned, legal, procurement, finance, IT, they always sort of like feel like they need to be more strategic. They like to say that, what is for us next, we need to be more strategic. And that's been said for like decades now. So it's not like just because of the AI, but it is actually true, I think, now that this technology is powerful enough to bring this to reality. But here's the thing: you need to then understand, you need to then define what it is to be more strategic, right? So this will be a little bit of a crisis there, I think, in some cases, but there's a lot of upside there from a value perspective. So doing more, not only doing things faster, but also doing it more and allowing people to be more strategic. But the last thing I say, and this is the least talked about, is actually the quality. So I think it's really hard to sustain a quality bar without automation. The only other alternative for this, when you think about fast food chains, or when you think about like big organization, is to strict down the variability of things, to almost like there's no, like, like to the pixel, if you will, right? Like to the T. Like you have to do things in exactly the same way, the person, I mean, when the company is really, really critical about the quality control. But that kills a lot of what makes humans successful, which is actually handling exceptions, understanding the context, the nuances of a situation. And so I think the ability to increase quality using agents is actually the biggest longer term value, in my opinion, because you will be able to add the credibility of an automation structure, but with the flexibility that comes with people. And then you combine all the three together, right, where you can do it faster and do more things and elevate the people together. That is it, even playing to the same role. So I think people really should think about that as well when they think about, like, why would we automate this process and with agents versus like normal automation, or just keep doing the way we're doing it with people. It's efficiency, it's scalability, and it's quality.
Makes sense. You talk a lot about human in the loop automation, and you have strong views about what that looks like in the real world. How do you see it?
Yeah, I don't think, I think the idea of machines, replacing people, it's more of like a cultural, like almost like a gossip magazine versus like real opinion, from the way I'm thinking about it, because nothing that we do makes sense without people. Like we only, like the economies and infrastructure and culture, of course, but like every job, this interview, right, has no meaning without humans listening to it, right? So everything we do for other humans. Our entire concept, money doesn't exist, if there's no humans, there is no money all of a sudden, like the same day, right? So the entire thing is meant for other humans. So so it doesn't matter how smart the technology is, from my perspective. It only matters how it contributes to our ability to work with, help, or benefit from each other as humans, right? And so in many ways, there's a lot I can talk for like an hour just on the reasons why current technology, like the current state of AI and processes and the way enterprises work, requires human in the loop. But I think the more interesting point is that the tactical reasons will change and will evolve, but the reality of it would be that the enterprises as a whole are built for us as humans to kind of collaborate together and work together towards a goal. And so the agents are just going to become better and better technology partners for us. And so it is the most important piece of designing a solution with whatever tools or technology or platform you're bringing in, designing the solutions around how people work and what people need in order to work better, versus trying to create things in a vacuum that are sort of like, just running their thing, which again, I don't even think that exists, but like some people think that exists. And so they go and thinking about how to do that. In reality, the LLMs, AI, whether it's chat, whether it's agent, is a collaborative technology. And that feedback loop is what makes it work. And so you have to design that feedback loop in order for it to work operationally.
Great, really well said. So I've been in the enterprise tech world for 30 plus years, and there's plenty of technologies that look great in a demo or on a whiteboard or on slides, but implementation is always the biggest challenge. What mistakes do you envision or maybe are seeing? What roadblocks have to be overcome when it comes to getting this technology deployed in very complex enterprises with technical debt and legacy systems and processes? How do you see that working?
Yeah. One thing that is a little bit of a repeat, but is part of it, is it is about expectations, right? So at the end of the day, most technologies fail or not live to their potential, in my opinion, from two reasons: expectations and change. And so when it comes to expectations, having the right expectations of what that technology can do and what it cannot do, where is it powerful versus where it is not powerful, right? We can bring countless of analogies, right? I can give you electrical saw and you'll be like, whoa, that's amazing, compared to, and they're like, that's the most amazing machine I've ever seen. And then an uninformed person will be like, well, now, wait, can it also like drill for me? Can it, they do things that are like, has nothing to do with what the technology is actually good at, but are similar pains that you have on other areas. And so people sort of like do this, taking one area and sort of like making an assumptions that this might be applicable to another area without understanding the technology. And I'm talking about like just historically. And so, when it's like mobile, it's like, oh, everything's mobile. Like, no, not everything should be mobile. Cloud, everything's cloud. Well, some things cannot be cloud. Oh, internet will solve everything. That may be the closest to the truth, but you know what I mean? Like it's not everything was successful by having an internet. Like I haven't seen a fridge with an internet that makes sense for me. Why I need the fridge to have it. You know what I mean? So, so that's the first thing, is like the expectations are off, and we've seen it with AI and agent as well. It's like, oh, let's just put AI on it. Again, that goes back to the human in the loop piece. It was like, it can do stuff, like it would do a task, it will give an answer, unlike again in the past where it would just like error out. But is it good? Is this the right answer? Is this like what we wanted, without the feedback? And when should you use it? What type of task you need to use it for? And we can talk about that. So that's one area. But the second area is change. And I've been saying it for many years now. The biggest hurdle for innovation is change. And that's always under planned for and underappreciated. And many technologies died on that hill. I think the one thing that makes me feel different about AI is that my grandma is in her 90s and she uses ChatGPT. And so there's something fundamentally more natural about how LLMs and agents behave, how they interact, that has the potential, that has a real potential, like very, again, we already seeing it in a real life scenarios, but as a whole, it has the potential to have a much better outcome as a technology wave than previous technology waves.
Yeah, I would agree. And often these waves, certainly in the enterprise, first get started in certain business units or verticals, whether it's legal, maybe procurement or finance or sales or marketing before it goes company wide. Are there any use cases that you're seeing most impactful or transformational with AI or orchestration in general?
Yeah. So just as a rule of thumb, the best use cases for LLM based systems or agents are problems or tasks that are hard to do or takes a long time or complicated, but like they're hard to do, but are very easy to review, right? So, a visual example is literally a visual, like an image, right? Like if you ask you to do a drawing of something complicated, you have to be an artist. You have to have certain skills to do it well. But if I ask you for that same, same drawing to review it and tell me, does that look like, the top? Does like look like a horse? You know what I mean? Like, does that look like whatever the subject of the drawing is? You'll be able, like a 3-year-old will be able to say yes or no, right? And so those are the use cases that are successful right now, and I think will be for a while. And that includes in engineering, in the development space. The reason why dev work, software developers work has been so booming in the last couple of years around AI and LLM is because of that. You need to refactor thousands of files of code. AI can do it very quickly, and then you can just review it and immediately can see if you're expert and if you have experience, you can immediately see where it's doing things wrong. And I think the examples where it's bad is the opposite of that. Is where you you ask a task from an AI that you know nothing about, right? And so again, you can go all the way back to like writing a blog. Like, write a blog for me, and like you don't know how to write a good blog, and so you see the output, you're like, oh, that's better than what I would do, so that must be good enough, right? And so when you think about from legal and finance and the likes, that's very common. You might be like, oh, draft letter of intent for me, right? You've never drafted one before. Whatever it comes out with, be like, oh, that looks pretty good, but you have no idea whether it's actually good or not, right? So this is again where the orchestration comes in, because that allows an organization to, instead of just give access to people into just the general purpose, LLM or chat, is to build agents that are trained, configured, scoped in a way that is aligned with the quality bar, the policies, and the guidelines of the organization. So when a person say, hey, I need someone to review my contract, can you do some initial review of this contract? Again, that someone is usually not an attorney, right? It's just like a random person, like a marketing person or a salesperson or product person. And so they need just someone to tell them, like, is there any like red flags here before I go ahead with this thing? That's where this can be very useful and immediate value. And we have customers that are leveraging Tonkean for that use case specifically as one example. And that is also true for invoice processing, and that's true for sourcing and compliance checks. And there's a lot of use cases like that. And I think this is sort of like the real kind of like land grab, if you will, that people would get the most value of in the immediate future. And then from there, there's a lot of depends on where the technology would go, but also culturally, what people would be, what type of risk and change will people be willing to accept.
Brilliant. And, most enterprises aren't tech companies. They have some tech bench, but they're logistics companies or they're warehousing companies or they're freight forwarders. That's the business landscape these days. How do you, get started with Tonkean, for example? Do you have a blueprint or a playbook, or is there a, audit of their systems? How do you engage in this, novel approach? What's the first step?
Yeah, there's two paths about it. We have offerings on top of the platform that are productized and specialized into certain use cases. Like an offering for procurement and purchasing, intake, supplier, onboarding and intake and invoice handling and so on, as well as legal. Whether it's a matter, enterprise matter, lifecycle management and contract reviews and the likes. But the platform allows for, to what you just mentioned, where you can kind of like connect to any ecosystem and take and help orchestrate any process. And so usually it's a combination. So usually it's a company that starts with us has some not unique, but some specific problem around areas where we have like a blueprint out of the box to start with. And then sort of like as they bring Tonkean in, they realize, oh, we can actually use this for a lot of other processes around this. And then from there, it's kind of like grows. But essentially, any process that involves different departments and different technologies and different priorities, honestly, needs an orchestration. And of course, when you think about bringing agents into any of your internal processes, this would immediately be the first thing that you would need to do. So we're very fortunate to be in this point in time, honestly, where the market is heading.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for joining. Really exciting stuff. I can't wait to watch this journey unfold. Really exciting. Thanks for sharing the vision and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
And thanks everyone for listening, watching, sharing, and do check out our new TV show now on Fox Business and Bloomberg at techimpact.tv. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Sagi.